Hi, and welcome to On and Off, our podcast covering the on premise and off premise beverage alcohol industry. I'm Melissa Dowling, editor of Cheers.
And I'm Kyle Swartz, editor of Beverage Dynamics magazine. Today, we're going to be talking with Ian Blessing, who recently opened All the Bitter, America's first comprehensive zero proof tasting lounge in Chico, California.
So, All the Bitter is actually a cocktail bitters brand that was founded by Ian and his wife Carly. And the new All the Bitters Zero Proof Lounge it combines a refined cocktail bar, an educational workshop space, and a bottle shop with more than 200 non-alcoholic options all under one roof. So welcome, Ian, and thank you for being on with us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Melissa and Kyle. Thanks for having me.
So you and Carly were both previously sommeliers at French Laundry, which is a pretty big deal. The Napa Valley restaurant is famous and has a stellar wine list. I mean, everyone knows French Laundry. Kyle, do you know it?
My joke. Melissa likes to point out when I don't know on premise establishments on the other side of the country from where I live. But no, I am not as familiar with it.
So Ian, how do you go from French Laundry somms to zero proof beverage proprietors?
That's a good question. I did not see myself making non-alcoholic cocktail bitters 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, honestly, the answer is pretty straightforward. We fell in love working together at the French Laundry, got married, and had kids. And when our first son was 5 months old, we both decided to quit drinking and got really into non-alcoholic alternatives as people who enjoy delicious drinks and the ritual of a well-crafted cocktail or glass of wine or beer, but don't want the intoxicating effects anymore. And so we started amassing, a non-alcoholic bar at home. This is about 6 years ago or so, and realized that even at that time, there were probably 30 or 40 different non-alcoholic spirits on the market. There was everything from gin, tequila, whiskey, Campari. There was even an absinthe. You had the entire bar, but really what was missing were fully alcohol-free cocktail bitters. You had brands advertising Manhattans and Old Fashions with Angostura. And so if you're not familiar already, Angostura and most cocktail bitters are between 40 and 50% alcohol by volume. You're only using a couple of dashes. So there's a lot of confusion, even within the industry, but certainly amongst consumers, that cocktail bitters are non-alcoholic. Because if you're familiar with distribution portfolios, you've probably seen most of the standard bitters brands listed as non-alcoholic, even though they're 45% alcohol by volume. So unless folks are digging in a little further, people just assume that there's no alcohol in bitters. And so, yes, you're only using a couple dashes per drink, which is why it's labeled as non-alcoholic. Because if you're only adding 2 or 3 dashes to a drink that's 7 or 8 ounces of liquid, it still stays under that 0.5% alcohol threshold that keeps things labeled non-alcoholic. But a really good example is a non-alcoholic old fashioned, which is on menus across the country. There's a ton of places serving NA old fashions. An old fashioned is only, we're considering dilution too. So ice, liquid, and everything, 4 ounces of liquid at the most. 2 dashes of alcoholic bitters brings that drink above 0.5% alcohol. 3 or 4 dashes, which is more likely what's going into it, raises it above 1%.
Hmm.
That drink is still not going to get anybody intoxicated. You could drink 10 of those and you're still not going to feel any effects. But that drink is technically alcoholic. And a lot of people who don't drink for whatever reason are going to be uncomfortable with that, whether they're in recovery or they're religious or they're not drinking for pregnancy issues or health issues or medication. There's a million reasons why somebody might not want you to add hard alcohol to their otherwise non-alcoholic cocktail. But again, at the time, there were very, very few options on the market that were fully alcohol free. And so we saw an opening and a need in the market and started developing recipes in our home kitchen and has scaled up now, I think 4 times since then into where we are now, which is our own dedicated production facility with warehousing. We do all of our shipping here. And now we have a tasting room and bottle shop on site as well.
Fantastic. Good for you guys. Congratulations on all that growth. That's great to see. And you guys told a similar story as I tell a lot on this podcast. And when I talk about my wife and I have kids, and during when my wife was pregnant with our first kid, same kind of thing. I mean, I certainly didn't give up drinking, but my wife gave up drinking, and so that's when I kind of realized the quality to which mocktails had reached, and this was probably 3.5 years ago now, 4 years ago. And she just started ordering mocktails everywhere we went for obvious reasons. And I would have a sip because I was curious to see what they taste like, and they taste great now. It's incredible how far mocktails have come. For people like my wife, your wife, you guys who want to stop drinking for any reason. You mentioned your on premise and your bottle lounge. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the guide tastings going on there and the educational tours going on there that explore non-alcoholic beverages, botanical ingredients, and how to build complex flavor without alcohol?
Yeah, so we function very much, and the space very much feels like an urban winery. We're in Chico. We're about an hour and a half north of Sacramento. We are on a very industrial commercial street. There's big trucks driving up and down. We're in a huge parking lot that is often filled with 18 wheelers. So it's a very fun little location, and then you walk in and it's a really cute little nice kind of tasting room. And you look through, there's three viewing windows, so you can look into the production facility and you can see where we make stuff. You can watch us making our bitters. But we have a pretty small, little lounge. There's five tables. We have a bar and a couple outside tables. And by a bar, I mean a countertop that seats about five people. That Carly built. One of her pandemic hobbies was woodworking, and she built our back bar. She built the counter. She built all the shelves, the retail desk, everything.
That's
So
great.
it's very quaint. It's a very kind of homey feel. Um, but we have a couple tasting options. We do a bitters and soda flight. So bitters, of course, are used in cocktails like old fashions and Manhattans. And an important point is that our bitters can be used in cocktails with or without alcohol. They work both ways. People who don't drink and may want no alcohol, this is the only option for them, is a non-alcoholic bitter. But you're not using bitters for their alcohol content, like vanilla extract. You're not using it because it's alcoholic. Alcohol just happens to be the carrier of flavor. So you can use these the same way you would use anything else. So we do a bitters and soda flight, which is the easiest way, and for me, I think one of the most enjoyable ways to use bitters, which is just mixing a few dashes with sparkling water to make what is basically a refreshing, more interesting version of a flavored seltzer like LaCroix, that's not made with artificial flavors and colors. It's made with real whole plants. We're hand grinding spices. We're peeling oranges. It's made with real, good ingredients and things that are really good for digestive health and gut health. So bitters and soda flight is the first thing we offer, and that's free. If you want to come in and just taste what we do, that's complimentary. That's like our version of water, but you get to start with like four really fun little bubbly flavored waters in like a little beer glass flight. And then we offer a cocktail flight. So we have a non-alcoholic cocktail flight where we serve four cocktails, and we have all of those available in cocktail bundles that you can take home with you. And so, like a tasting room, if you take home a bundle, the cocktail flight is free. So really kind of trying to bring the experience of a tasting, of a wine tasting, of an alcoholic tasting, to a community that doesn't really get to appreciate that or enjoy that at this point. If you're not drinking and you go to Napa, there's very few things for you there. You feel left out. You're being offered Pellegrino or something, maybe in a nice wine glass, which is nice, but there's nothing really very enjoyable about drinking a Pellegrino while everybody else is, sipping $100 bottles of Napa Cab. So it really does set up that really fun kind of elevated tasting experience for somebody who doesn't drink and wants to learn how to make better drinks. And that's really the point of why we're here. We make an ingredient that's integral to the non-alcoholic beverage landscape, but the purpose of our being here is to help educate and to help people make better drinks at home. So the cocktail flight's a really nice way to try, four different drinks: a margarita, a Negroni, a lemon drop, a champagne cocktail, whatever they are. They change, periodically. And then you can take home everything you need, all the ingredients plus all the instructions to make those drinks at home. And then the last one we offer is a wine flight. So we serve four non-alcoholic wines, de-alcoholized wines: Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet, a Petit Syrah, and a sparkling wine. And again, those change, but that's a really fun way to explore some of the better non-alcoholic wines on the market. And those too have really dramatically increased in quality over the last couple of years.
Yeah. I had a look at your drink menu, and you have like zero proof cocktails like the agave margarita and old fashioned, and those are priced at 12.
Mhm.
and then a couple mocktails priced at 6. So is that distinction and price difference due to the use of the non-alcoholic spirits?
Correct, and that's a really good point, and something I'm glad you brought up, because it's a huge challenge, and I think one of the biggest obstacles to not only widespread adoption of the non-alcoholic, beverage market and seeing these drinks, really kind of take hold all over the country, but adoption amongst consumers, which ultimately means more money in the pockets of restaurant operators, is figuring out how to position these drinks, how to sell them, what to call them, and what to price them so that consumers, your guests, understand why they're paying what they are for these drinks. We had, a recent headline in the Wall Street Journal, I think it was, the headline was, "Why does my mocktail cost $15?" And there's a couple angles to that. It's a good question. So I'm going to start with, I define a mocktail as a non-alcoholic drink that is made with juices, teas, syrups, sodas, vinegar, shrub, whatever, even bitters, but doesn't include non-alcoholic spirits. Mocktails, as I define them, are not trying to necessarily mimic an alcoholic cocktail, and they do not include a non-alcoholic spirit, which makes them significantly cheaper. It brings the cost of goods down considerably. A mocktail should not cost $15 because those ingredients don't warrant a $15 menu price. Grapefruit juice, lime juice, soda, ginger beer, whatever, those are very low cost of goods items. Those drinks should be $7 or $8 at the most, depending on where you are. But if you're serving a proper non-alcoholic cocktail made with a non-alcoholic spirit, that drink costs the restaurant just as much to make, if not more, than a proper cocktail, because non-alcoholic spirits cost just as much, if not more, than their alcoholic counterparts. Those drinks should cost $15 if your other drinks cost $15. They should cost whatever your cocktails cost. So education wise, and in terms of positioning these drinks, it's confusing for people, for consumers who have, first of all, used the word mocktail as our default word for years and years and years to mean anything that's non-alcoholic. But we have this idea in our head that mocktails are Shirley Temples. We have this idea that mocktails are pineapple juice, grenadine, Sprite, that they're basically what I described. They're non-alcoholic drinks without spirits in them. That is a particular style of drink that a lot of restaurants still serve. A lot of restaurants still serve those basic juicy mocktails that honestly half the time aren't very good. But that is a style, and some people prefer that style of drink versus, let's say, a margarita made with a non-alcoholic tequila that tastes triggeringly close to a proper margarita. That's another style of drink, and people might have a preference for one versus the other. But when we think about all non-alcoholic drinks as mocktails, and mocktails as juicy sugar bombs that shouldn't cost more than $7, it's really hard in our head to now see a non-alcoholic cocktail that includes a spirit and justify a $15 price, because in our heads, all non-alcoholic drinks are just juice and shouldn't cost $15. So we're trying to make a distinction that there are mocktails and there are non-alcoholic cocktails. And it's not even an ideological, like, I'm not calling it mocktails because I don't like the word. I don't care what you call it. I could care less how you refer to the drinks that you make at home. But it's really important that we start to educate and understand that these non-alcoholic cocktails cost what they do because they cost a lot to make, and they are not juicy mocktails.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you use the term triggeringly close. I read something recently that, the mocktails, um, zero proof cocktails or whatever that use these NA spirits taste so much like the real thing that it makes some people want one. There's that risk of, triggering that desire for a drink with alcohol. I mean, is that a concern at all?
I mean, it's a very personal, individual concern. It's not a concern for me, and I really don't think it should be a concern for anybody working in this industry. Most people who are buying non-alcoholic spirits, cocktails, beer, wine, etc., still drink alcohol. The overwhelming majority of consumers who are buying these drinks still enjoy alcohol. They just want a different option on a Tuesday night or a lunch where they want, a delicious drink, but they don't necessarily want a beer at 12 o'clock because they'll get sleepy. So for most people, it's not an issue at all because they still drink. Otherwise, it's very personal. So I quit drinking 6 years ago. I don't consider myself in recovery. I used to drink. I don't drink anymore. And everybody has a different way of thinking about their own sobriety, their own recovery, whatever they want to call it. There are absolutely people who do not and should not drink non-alcoholic beer, wine, spirits because it may be triggering for them. But it's a little frustrating for me because there's a lot of that language. There's a lot of articles, there's a lot of people saying these drinks are dangerous for people in recovery. And there's a lot of people in recovery communities, AA meetings specifically, telling people who have quit drinking that non-alcoholic beer is for non-alcoholics, that mocktails are a slippery slope, that these drinks, and I'm not kidding, they will let you know that if you have a non-alcoholic beer, you will be dead by next week because you will go to the bar immediately and start pounding beers. And that is a wild thing to tell somebody. I don't know you. I don't know your brain. I know mine. And I know that my brain loves the flavor of a margarita and has no intention of having a real margarita after I have a fake one. I could drink non-alcoholic beers all day and have no desire to have an alcoholic beer. For me, it helps me stay sober. And I know thousands and thousands of people that I've met over the last couple of years that use these as a tool in their sobriety toolkit. That's not to discredit at all the folks who cannot have these drinks and should not have these drinks. But it should be something that you think about critically for yourself. And I hope that we stop pushing that on folks who are, I'm not saying that you're pushing this at all, but it's a thing that's come up a lot over the last couple of years, and it's very frustrating for me to hear it almost be condemned by people who are trying to say that this is not safe for people who don't drink. It is safe if it's safe for you. Only you know that. You can have a sip. If you have a sip and it's triggeringly close, then spit it out and don't. Yeah. You are not going to go run to a bar and pound a bottle of vodka after having one sip of a non-alcoholic cocktail. Like, think about it critically for yourself and make a decision for yourself is what it's the advice that I would give people.
Sure. Let's talk about the bottle shop. What are you selling over there? How much does the lounge and education center drive these retail sales, and has it been good for your bitters business?
So the bottle shop, the on-premise side of our lounge has really helped to drive retail. And I think that's a super important point for anybody who is considering a non-alcoholic bottle shop, is that tasting is really important. And the whole point of having a non-alcoholic bottle shop is to offer not only a curated and a larger selection than you're going to find at a place like Total Wine or Bevmo. And it's awesome that all these places have great NA sections at this point. But the point of a fully non-alcoholic bottle shop is not only a wider selection, but also a knowledgeable staff and the opportunity to taste things before you buy them. These things are not cheap. So, the idea of buying a $40 bottle of a non-alcoholic whiskey online, waiting a week to get it, paying shipping, and then tasting it, and it not drinking like Jack Daniels, because it does not, and it does not function the way Jack Daniels does. You cannot, you can do whatever you want, but I would not recommend drinking a non-alcoholic whiskey straight. It's not meant to be enjoyed that way. It's meant to be enjoyed in a cocktail. So having a physical place where we can not only pour these things for people, and I can pour you a whiskey to tell you to explain, better what I'm talking about, but then I can also make you our old fashioned, or I can make you a whiskey sour or a bourbon mule, and I can show you why the bourbon mule works and the whiskey sour works versus drinking the whiskey on its own isn't very good. I can teach you how to make an old fashioned that satisfies, which requires just a couple additional tweaks versus making a standard old fashioned recipe. So having the ability to serve drinks, to pour tastes, and to do these tasting flights, and to have people sit down and be curious. People want to know. They want to know how to make better drinks. Being able to have conversations with people before they take something home is huge, not only for their enjoyment of what they purchased. They're not going to go home and be bummed out. I've seen so many people order $40 bottles of whiskey online and then taste them and then dump them down the drain because they don't drink like Jack Daniels does. And they were expecting to just drink a glass of whiskey. And that doesn't exist. If you want to just drink a glass of whiskey, I've got other options for you that aren't whiskey that you're probably going to enjoy. But again, it's very helpful to be able to pour you samples of them so you can taste them before you take them home. So not only does it mean, it's a better experience for people, and they're much more likely, if not guaranteed, to love what they bought because they've tasted it first. But for us, it absolutely does drive sales. We have people come in and do a tasting, and they'll spend an hour here, and spend $15 on a flight, and then leave with $200 of product because they had such a great time. They got to taste, 7, 8 different things, and then they picked out their favorites.
Your menu also has some functional drinks like the Yuzu Meyer Lemon Drop, which is made with kava, which is said to offer a light buzz without the
Mm-hmm.
alcohol. Um, do you plan to expand that offering or get into other functional ingredients?
So we have a full quarter of the shop is functional drinks. We only have 4 shelves. It's pretty small, but one whole shelf is all functional drinks, and we sell a ton of CBD, kava, adaptogenic drinks, and functional mushrooms. So functional mushrooms are things like reishi, lion's mane, chaga, all these different things that do not get you high, but they are great for, whether it's immunity or cognitive function or mood or whatever. Adaptogenic drinks with things like ashwagandha and holy basil and valerian root and schisandra berry and all these herbs that are either good for calm or for energy, or they serve different functions. That is by far the most popular section of the shop. And so again, for anybody that is considering this space and how to use it and make it work for them, that is a section to pay a lot of attention to. Kava in particular, out of all of them. So first of all, in most shops, we cannot in California because California placed a temporary ban on THC products outside of dispensaries.
Hmm.
You can go to a Total Wine almost anywhere else in the country and buy THC in a Total Wine or anywhere else for that
Yeah.
matter. In all non-alcoholic bottle shops that sell THC, that is by far their highest selling category for reasons that make a lot of sense. It gets you high. It's intoxicating. You're going to come back for more. There's an effect associated with it. We don't sell THC. And so for us, Kava is by far our best-selling section. And Kyle, to go back to your question from earlier, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that the bottle shop and the tasting room and doing everything that we're doing for us has, yes, dramatically increased our bitter sales here.
Sure.
So I frequently tell people that our best-selling category is the Kava drinks. But I always qualify that with after our bitters. I would have been, and after the first couple of months, I did look at the numbers and was relieved to see that the bitters outsold everything by far. But immediately after that were our Kava spirits and our Kava
Sure.
cocktails. And so for us, this is obviously because we make a supporting ingredient. We make cocktail bitters that can go into any drink. We sell a lot of our cocktail kits, and we're expanding that selection. We will have at some point soon 8 or 9 different cocktail bundles that we're also going to add to our website. And then, of course, every single one of those comes with our bitters.
Sure.
So that has helped a lot. But the kava drinks are things that people come in for, enjoy, and come back for more because they're enjoying one or 2 drinks every night after work, and they come back to restock. Kava works really well, not only because it does give you a very, very mild buzz that's not at all like alcohol. It's technically intoxicating, and this is maybe a precious distinction. It's not really inebriating
Mm.
like alcohol is. Like
Mhm.
there's a buzz, there's a feeling with it, but you're not going to slur your words. There's no falling down. There's no drunk texting. It's not affecting your decision making really. If you drink a ton of it, yes, like you can get kava drunk, but like in a normal, I mean, even 2 or 3 servings, like you're going to feel a light tingle and this sensation of like, ooh, I had a drink. That's nice. The
Mm.
feeling is like, ooh, that's a nice feeling. That's it. It's like a light tingle. It's a light body buzz. It's kind of a social, stimulant, but it's very, very mild. There's no hangover the next day. It's pretty quick. It lasts for like 30, 40 minutes, but it's noticeable versus the adaptogen drinks, which are often advertised, I think, a little misleadingly as providing an effect that you can feel. Adaptogens, I think, are better to think about them like a dietary supplement, like something that you're supposed to take every day for general health and well-being. They will help with stress, they'll help with energy, they'll help with all these different things, but you're not going to notice an effect necessarily. If you have three or four of them, you will. I notice a feeling after three or four, you know, ashwagandha, lion's mane, whatever, lemon balm, cocktails. But kava, you notice right away. And it has a mouth tingling effect, which is really interesting. So it impacts your palate in a different way, but it impacts your palate like alcohol does, which makes it really satisfying, most importantly,
Mm-hmm.
as a cocktail alternative. So, like the mule that we serve with a spirit called Kava Hall, which is a ginger kava spirit, is absolutely incredible and hits just like a mule does. There is no good non-alcoholic vodka. I'm sorry, it doesn't exist. There's a few brands that make it. That's not good. Vodka is doesn't have any flavor to replicate, so it would just be spicy water.
Mm-hmm.
You're just as good off drinking a ginger beer with lime versus trying to add a vodka to it. Kava Hall, on the other hand, has an intense bite to it because kava has a really bitter bite and a mouth numbing effect. And it's ginger flavored, so it works really well in that drink. So it makes a really satisfying ginger mule, and you get a little buzz from it. The other spirit we use a lot is called Kava Haven, and it's a lemony kava spirit. It's lemon, ginger, vanilla, cardamom. It's really good. And one of my favorite things to actually sip straight. It's one of the few non-alcoholic spirits that you can just chill and pour into a glass because, again, kava has such an intense, bitter, and kind of earthy flavor. That goes in our lemon drop and is phenomenal. So we serve a lemon drop with yuzu juice, Meyer lemon syrup, Kava Haven, and our orange bitters. Better than a standard lemon drop is.
Well, you've done an excellent job selling kava. I got to go get some.
I like it. I mean, I enjoy it personally, and I also see it as a very strong alcohol alternative, but something that is going to require a lot of thought and education because putting kava on restaurant menus is more challenging. It's a great thing for people at home, but that was a lot of explanation. I just talked about kava for 5 minutes. You don't have that much time when
Mm-hmm.
you're serving somebody a drink in a bar.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to order that drink. That server is not going to explain what kava is. They're just going to serve you that drink. And then the guest starts to drink it and their mouth goes numb and they're like, what is happening? And then they start to feel a buzz and they're like, why am I buzzed? I ordered a non-alcoholic drink. So hopefully, they already know that, or you can put a disclaimer or put some kind of information on the menu. But I see kava as a really strong DTC option, a really strong retail option for people.
Are you finding it difficult to carry non-alcoholic wines? What's your thoughts on non-alcoholic wines right now? Do any of them taste good? Can they be offered at a good price?
So honestly, it's much easier for us to carry them because we get to pour them and have people taste them first. What I will say about non-alcoholic wine is that the reds are much more challenging. The sparkling wines are across the board very, very good because the issue is texture. You're missing the weight of alcohol. You're missing the texture of alcohol. Bubbles solve that problem.
Yeah.
So a couple of my favorites. One is called Naughty, Noughty. It's a very good, I think, just kind of everyday drinking wine. It's great on its own. It's great in cocktails. My other favorite is called Bolle, Bolle. They use a proprietary secondary fermentation. So they developed a yeast that does not raise the alcohol above a certain percentage. So they make an alcoholic wine, they remove the alcohol, they put it back in tank, they add their yeast to it, and it doesn't raise it above 0.5% alcohol.
Mm.
What it does is it gives it really wonderful texture and flavor without having to add added flavors. The still white wines are also very good, and the two that are the best, I think, are typically Sauvignon Blanc and Riesling because those grapes have such strong varietal character to begin with. When you remove the alcohol, more of that character is left in the wine. So the Sauvignon Blancs, there's a bunch of great ones. Sea Glass makes the one that we carry here. and sell the most of. So they produce alcoholic Sauvignon Blanc in Central Coast, California. They make a non-alcoholic version, and it is indistinguishable from Sauvignon Blanc in
Hmm.
aroma and flavor. It doesn't have the weight of alcohol. It doesn't punch like a 13% Sauvignon Blanc does,
Yeah.
but it is indistinguishable in flavor. The reds are more challenging. My two favorites and what we serve here. The first is Tomorrow Cellars. It's a red blend based on Petite Syrah. We actually made a proprietary botanical extract for that wine that's in the wine. Most NA wines, Sea Glass and the other one that I'm going to mention called Luminara, have a ton of added flavors. They're adding not only grape juice, but they're adding flavors to bring back a lot of what was lost in the wines. Tomorrow Cellars reached out to us and said, we need to add something back to the wine. You almost have to add something back to the wine to balance it, but they didn't want to use flavors. So we created a botanical blend for them made with cassis and blueberry and cherry and oak and chocolate, but also mint and sage and jalapeno and bell pepper, because those are all flavors that you find in alcoholic red wines. So we added a very tiny amount, a drop of this extract to the wine to give it balance, and it drinks the most like a red wine of anything that I've tasted. It's dry, it's tannic, and it has wonderful red wine flavor. It's still fairly light in body. The last one is called Luminara that I would recommend. It's a Cabernet. It's made by the same folks that make Free, which is you'll find Free everywhere. I
Hmm.
don't love Free. Their sparkling wine is fine again because most sparkling wines are fine, but their red wines are juicy. They're $7, $8 in grocery stores. They taste like grape juice. Luminara is their higher end $18, $19 Napa Cab, and it's really good. But it's juicy. They add grape juice to it, and so the trade off is it has a little more body, but it does have a juicy flavor to it. But across the board, whites and sparkling wines, very good. Reds have some work.
Yeah, I've noticed the exact same thing. All the good non-alc wine I've had have all been sparkling wines. I can't say I've had a single non-alcoholic red wine that's tasted good. I'm still
Yeah.
searching for one. I'm writing these down. I'm gonna check out those two you mentioned.
I am too. Lot of good suggestions.
Yeah.
The other trick is actually to add our bitters, and that's why Tomorrow
Hmm.
Cellars reached out and had us make something for them. Is folks add our bitters to NA red wine frequently to add more flavor and to balance some of that grape juiciness.
That makes sense.
So our New Orleans style, which is like tart cherry with anise and hibiscus, that one works really well. We also make a coffee bitter
Hmm.
that's really good at adding some rich roasted kind of chocolate and coffee flavors. So things like Cabernet or Zin work really well with that one.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you again, Ian, for joining us.
Of course. Thank you both so much for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks to all of you out there for listening to another episode of On and Off. Please do join us next time and we'll talk about yet another fascinating topic that spans the retail and restaurant worlds. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.
If you enjoyed the On and Off podcast, please hit the subscribe button. Also, you can find more great content at cheersonline.com and beveragedynamics.com, including recipes, product reviews, and interviews with the movers and shakers of the beverage alcohol industry. You can also sign up for our free weekly e-newsletters for both publications on our websites. Cheers!